Hear you asking, why do we hunger? I say we hunger for conquest over the living. We hunger for victory.
When you think of a high-quality total conversion mod for a computer game, I'd say that They Hunger fits the bill better than anything else in like the past decade or two. It's a classic, going back to the late 90s, early 2000s, a 3-part horror mod for Half-Life, going from spooky, down-to-earth supernatural vibes to pulpy B-movie action, complete with plenty of zombies, and mutated bulls, and skeletons that shoot lightning in you, and infected cops, and everything else. It is insane, and I love it. It's a blast to play, even today. I'd say that one of the things that hasn't aged as well, though, is that it uses a lot of pre-existing content from Half-Life itself. So it doesn't always carry that full conversion feeling at times, like with the head crabs, or with how the guns are basically just reskinned Half-Life weapons and so on. The enemies are used creatively, but still, there's only so much you can hide from them using the basic archetypes of Half-Life. Fortunately, a mod dropped into the 2020s that actually reworks aspects of They Hunger to fit the setting even better and expand on the gameplay aspects of it. It's a lot of fun. It's called They Hunger Relit, and it's a overhaul of They Hunger, designed to work with modern systems after the anniversary update of Half-Life, and to breathe new life into the original game. The plot is the same as it was before. You're a writer in a small town in the 1950s on a vacation when your car crashes and you wake up in an old church and monastery. You quickly find things are spiraling out of control with some sort of zombie plague breaking out, the dead literally rising from their graves and other monsters coming to light. So armed with just a handgun and an umbrella, you try to make your way out of town, hopefully contact the authorities, even as things become clear that the situation's even worse than you thought. Over the course of 3 episodes, you do battle against plenty of zombies, undead police, undead military, the regular military, and so much else. Enemy variety is all over the place in a great way. Even the simple zombies can pose a serious threat because of the way it's designed. And the set pieces are pretty cool and clever. The puzzles are nice. Overall, it's still the great mod you played way back when, just with some improvements, biggest of which are with the models. More variety in the type of enemies you see. Some models just look better. Like the head crabs aren't just a slight retexture, now they're like a full zombie head with legs. The skeletons and the bigger zombies look better. There are some other unique redesigns for enemies and character models. The weapons also get a massive overhaul, which is much appreciated because this completely reshapes how the balance of the game goes. A lot of guns from the original They Hunger come from mods like Team Fortress Classic or the original Half-Life and so on. And they look cool, but they don't really fit the 1950s setting as well. And they don't really offer a lot in terms of variety from the original Half-Life. But They Hunger Relit settles this in a very clever way by using guns from Day of Defeat, the Half-Life-based World War II multiplayer mod. So, instead of finding a silenced Glock at the beginning of the game, you get your hands on an M1911 pistol. Things get better from there as you come across more period-appropriate weaponry with its own unique stats and with some settings that fit the weapons. So, you find enemies that have guns will usually carry the 1911, meaning that 45 ACP ammo is usually the most common you can find around. You'll also find a Thompson for your automatic. You'll find a Browning automatic rifle that can be set from fast firing to slow firing. Instead of the undermounted grenade launcher on the G3, you get a mortar launcher that can be deployed and fired that way, which requires some trial and error to get right, but it can be really effective against hordes if used well. There isn't a shotgun until last episode, which I thought was strange, but the double barrel is a blast to use, especially with the way it knocks back enemies and you can fire both barrels at once. Some guns that didn't even fit the original setting at all are replaced completely, like that one Taurus pistol is replaced with a Luger, the Tech 9 is replaced with the M3 grease gun, the minigun is replaced with the M1919 machine gun, and so on and so forth. You find a lot of different weapons that, in addition to looking the part, actually have stats that match the way they look. And that also goes for like the M1 Garand, which does the ping when it runs out of ammo. And the guns also fit with the different enemy types you encounter, like the infected police only use pistols, the military use the paratrooper M1 carbines and also Thompsons, and the guns scattered around usually fit the locations they're in, with you gaining access to more outlandish equipment as it progresses. I particularly liked the electrical cannon you get in the second and third episodes, because it makes the skeleton enemies much more enjoyable to fight. You can harvest their electricity for ammo and blast them and other enemies with it. I also like how some guns have different properties based on what their intended use is. So, like, instead of having a 17-round magazine for the starting pistol, you only get 7 shots. You don't get a ton of ammo, so the game encourages you to make everything count. And you will, because it does not give you a ton of ammo, at least not till the later episodes when you're up against tougher enemies with sometimes who have ranged attacks as well. Interestingly, there are some other quality of life changes that I didn't expect but were pretty welcome. There's an option to turn on damage numbers so you can see how much damage you're doing per shot to enemies, like with headshots versus chest shots and leg shots. There's also achievements you can earn that are represented in-game at the hub, where you can see a hologram of a specific enemy or item depending on if you completed the achievement. And if you click on it, you can also see for yourself what it represents and how to earn it. There's an optional side quest in all 3 episodes to carry this strange-looking heart from one part of the game to the end of it, which was a pretty interesting thing. I didn't expect that sort of Noam Chomsky-like achievement to work in Gold Source, and it doesn't really, but it's fun to screw around with. You can block enemies with it and set it aside on a wall while you gun down zombies. The downside is that it can sink through the floor, and I hate those kinds of achievements, so I gave up trying to do it. The one I did enjoy was the umbrella-only challenge for the first episode. That was a blast. It made me rethink how I was going to tackle challenges entirely. The other fun addition that I really liked was the survival mode. There are 3 levels that have scaling difficulties depending on what setting you put it on, easy, normal, or hard. And you go up against waves of enemies with you getting additional health kits and weapons and so on as it progresses, including some guns that never appear in story mode, like the trip mine and the crossbow, which is kind of a shame because they're both fun guns, but they're kind of underrepresented, and there would have been a use for them in story. That's to say nothing of the bazooka and the throwable rats, which you can obtain with cheats, which are awesome guns, but you never can use them without cheating. I would have liked to have been able to put them to use in story mode, blowing up bad guys and zombies with them. Survival's pretty fun. It can be a little buggy at times. You can use exploits to get out of the map and to get to certain points. My first playthrough of the second survival map put me at a state where I couldn't fight the final boss of that level, and I had to ultimately restart it. But it's still pretty fun, and I like how it really gets down to nitty-gritty details on how you fight and kill certain enemies, and timing everything wisely. Another thing I like is that health kits are scattered around, and instead of just using them only when you find them, you can pick up and carry them with you. So you deploy them whenever you feel like it's necessary. And it allows you to strategically determine when you need healing and when you keep fighting on. Adding on to this is that instead of armor, you have this infection meter, which increases as you take damage, including from drowning. The only way to drop it is by using a medical kit. The upside is that you do get some reduced damage intake as it goes up. The downside is that if it hits 100, you die. So managing that is important. It's better to flush out infection than to let it grow. Some other things that I thought were neat were that weapons dropped have to be picked up with E, and that also goes for medkits. It's pretty nice, but it can be an issue when guns fall slowly from enemy hands, or when you have to wait for an enemy to despawn to get your hands on it and restock, which happened to me more than a few times, where I would take down an infected cop or an infected soldier, and then they would just go through a slow death animation, their gun would slowly drop, and I'd be stuck spamming E trying to pick it up. But it is what it is. It's still fun. I didn't ever die because of it, so I didn't consider it a loss. The final boss is also still a total pain in the ass, no doubt about it. It's the helicopter fight against the sheriff, who has an insane amount of health. I'm amazed that they didn't fix that of all things, because that was one of the biggest complaints about the mod from the very get-go. But he still has an insane amount of health to the point where you gotta stock up on tons of ammo and use it strategically on the boss beforehand, so you can just wail away at the helicopter and hope you bring him down. It also doesn't help that the M1919 just kind of pales in comparison to the minigun. It's a fun weapon in its own right, but it takes the place of a multi-barreled machine gun that mows down everything. It can't help but sort of pale in comparison. But I will say, the weapons are fun to use. I like the new additions. I like how some stuff comes back untouched, like the umbrella, while others come back with either a slight coat of paint or a total rework, like how the Webley is the new revolver, or how the M1911 pistol is in place of the Glock. It adds on to the 1950s atmosphere, and it's fun, especially when you get to the pulpier parts of the game, because then you're just using World War II era guns up against Frankenstein monster-like enemies, or infected bulls, or you're no-scoping bigger zombies like the gnomes with a Springfield rifle. Enemy variety is awesome in this. There's a lot I love about this mod. No amount of downsides could bring it down, and thankfully it holds up well. It's not something that falls apart in the end, or where it's like always additions negatively impact it. It's a fresh take on They Hunger, and I had a blast with it. I'd highly recommend giving it a shot, but at the same time, I might recommend trying out the original first, because I think you'll only enjoy the changes more if you've played the original game. And if you have played They Hunger way back when, it'd be worth giving this a shot. It's a fresh way to experience it, it's fun to hunt for the achievements in it, and I really like how the balance of the game changes based on the weapons that are introduced and based on how enemies behave. Because guards are no longer deadly accurate, same with the soldiers, so it's a fair fight when you're up against them. They aren't just aimbotting you the moment they see you.
Another zombie! Get it! Time to die, zombie!
Overall, I'd highly recommend They Hunger Relit. It was a blast playing. I loved the episodes, I loved the survival mode. The achievements were a lot of fun. Aside from that hard pickup mini one, I would strongly recommend grabbing it off ModDB, especially if you played the original. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys give They Hunger Relit a shot. Shout out to the creators for making such a great rework of an already great mod. And I'd love to see what you guys think of everything hooked up. So, have a good one. Take care.